All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 10th, 2024 Bruce Township Planning Commission meeting. Our meeting start time is 6:06 p.m. Dana, would you call the roll, please?
Jared Vinson.
Here.
Cupits.
Here.
Eggleston.
Here.
Camp.
Here.
Boyce.
Here.
Barnett.
Here.
Layla.
Here.
Thank you. And we have a quorum. Before we start the business part of our meeting, I would ask that everybody rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so as we get going, this is a public business meeting of the Planning Commission, but we do welcome public comments at various points throughout our agenda. If you haven't already done so, we do request that you sign in at the table along the wall to my right. Do we have a record of who's in attendance? The commission is made up of 7 Bruce Township residents appointed by the board. In addition, we have a township employee, Dana Buchanan, who assists us with recording the minutes and is the township planning coordinator. We also have Joe Tangari, who's a professional planner from Giffords Webster, who advises us in the work that we do. During the opportunities to come up to the podium and address the commission for public comments, we ask that you try to keep comments to 3 minutes or in length. If you're representing a larger group, then we'll allot you some additional time. When you do come to the podium, we do ask that you please address the commissioners and not anyone in the audience, just to keep the meeting moving along in a good manner. So with that, we will get going on our agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the June meeting. Does any commissioners have edits to the minutes?
I have a couple.
Okay.
2 just spelling errors. So on page 4, the third box down, where it says up to the HOA 2, it says purse. I think you meant to say pursue. Okay, and the other one is on the next page, on page 5. A couple sentences from the bottom. Abilene is missing the E. There it says Van Dyke between 34 Mile and Abilene.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had a question on that same page towards the top. It says all voted in favor of the motion. I don't think I've seen it put in the minutes like that. Does it need to be spelled out like all the other ones with the ayes and nays?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, that was consent.
Oh,
I think it was just a voice vote.
Yeah.
okay. Okay. That was all.
Okay. Any other edits to the June minutes? Hearing none, I would make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Motion by Vincent, seconded by Cant. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item 5 is the approval of tonight's agenda. So you all have that in front of you. Are there any modifications that we need to make to the agenda? Hearing none, I would make a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
Second?
Motion by Vincent, seconded by Barnett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, moving on to item 6 on the agenda, which is our public comment. So if you are here this evening to talk about any item that's not on the agenda, any just general topics you'd like to address with the commissioners, please come to the podium and state your name and address so we just can note that in the records and take it away.
Sure. Hi, my name is Nick Batsakoris, 80800 Van Dyke. I'm the owner of Romeo Lavender Farm. And hi, planning commissions, and nice to meet you. I think it's Daryl, right? You're brand new. Hi, welcome to the committee. So my public comment here is just to have a public comment, just to throw my hat in the ring about the possibility of you guys expanding your master plan. You guys are talking about that, and I'd like to comment on that if you don't mind. So, again, I'm here to throw my property in the ring for consideration due to the location and where I'm located at. To the north of me is commercial in Elmont Township. To the south of me is Henry Ford Medical Center. That's commercial. And quite frankly, how I'm operating is commercial. You know, underneath GAMPS, you have to be a commercial operation to be qualified underneath the subtitles or certain qualifications in GAMPS. You have to be a commercial operation just to qualify for GAMPS. And quite frankly, I'm a commercial operation, even though I'm a commercial farm. So, you know, that's kind of the big reason. We got 20 acres next door at the Henry Ford Medical Center. You got 17 of mine. I'm at the corner. We've got 20 to 50,000 cars coming down Van Dyke every day. It's one of the busiest roads. Borman Road goes 20 miles, you know, from Memphis all the way to Rochester. And my property currently, you know, would leastly impact current residents or residents that are there. It's one of the most leastly densely populated. There's no subdivisions. There's no, you know, a bunch of homes around me. And I'm kind of located in the furthest northest part of your township. I'm kind of like out of your way, actually. Not that I want to be out of your way, but I'm just in this nice little pocket where there's just no residents to be bothered. And I know that's a big deal, and I understand that, you know. So, you know, that's a big consideration. The other consideration is how it's currently zoned. It's zoned RS, and one of the biggest issues I have is because where I'm located at, I'm on Van Dyke. I get a lot of traffic. There's a lot of noise. Next door is Henry Ford Medical Center. Who knows what's going to happen with that? I guess that's transitioning possibly into something. I mean, that's a 50,000 square foot building. That's certainly not going to stay residential. That's going to be some kind of a commercial, either be it what it is or whoever buys it or whatever is going to happen with that. To build a home on my property, like 5 acres, the way it's zoned, 5 acres generally goes for about $150,000 to $250,000, depending on where you're at in Bruce Township. And the square footage to build a home is about $225 a square foot to $350. Bottom line, it's going to be, to build a 2,000 square foot home, it's going to cost about $700,000. Because of my zoning, because it's minimum of 5 acres, and most people build a 2,000 square foot home, even if it's a little bit smaller. The deal is that anyone that's going to spend $600,000 to $700,000 to $800,000 is not going to want to be off Van Dyke. They're going to want to be on a secondary road or a private road where noise and commercial is non-existent. It's going to protect their investment. The other reason why I want you to consider it is for the future. Meaning, so when people do plan to build their new home somewhere, they can see that this corner parcel, mine and probably Henry Ford Medical Center, is possible, could be commercial one day, and they can make intelligent decisions on where they want to invest their money. And it would also save, one of the big things down the road, if some commercial developer ever wants to acquire my property or whatever the future holds, it would save a costly litigation for you guys or us, you know, the Bruce Township, because if he says, hey, you know, I'm on Van Dyke, Henry Ford's commercial, across the street's commercial, he's got a good argument in court, and then, you know where that goes, right? So I'm trying to save some kind of problems. The other thing, too, is I understand that you don't want to set precedents, and I get that. But just like Joe Tangari said and Mike Trombley said at many times, just because you do it for one thing doesn't mean all of them. It has to be an individual situation. So don't worry about setting precedents. It just got to make sense. And I believe my parcel makes sense to be considered for that. And for all them reasons, I'm asking you to, while you're looking at that, possibly consider that corner, because right now it's basically used for commercial. It really is, at the end of the day, right? Henry Ford Medical Center and me, we're commercial operations. So let's clean up the ordinance, and let's just do it the right way, as far as I'm concerned. All right?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, could I?
Yep.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dick.
Joe, just a real quick one, I hope. It's going to
be a number of weeks before we really get into it hot and earnest. But what is the process to let people know in the community that we're actually doing that and identify the steps? When can you, as a resident, come in and provide input? Could you do that?
Sure, yeah. So we have, I guess there's kind of two layers there. One is that you have your statutory noticing requirements, things, but you always want to go beyond that when you're working on a master plan because they're very minimal. So the township is going to have to look at all of its means of communication to people, and that could be, everything from social media and things to sending something with a tax bill or something like that that gives people, an awareness of what's going on in the township. We're updating the master plan. We're going to have a timeline that we set out, and we're going to have to build that timeline in a way that it allows us to maximize the number of people we can get in front of.
Thanks, Joe. All right, anyone else, public comments for items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move on. Item 7 is our public hearings. First up is the Harler SLU 5050 34 Mile Road. There's someone here to speak to that proposed project?
Good evening. My name is Mike Harler. This is Steve with Orchard Construction. Where do we go from here?
Maybe just give us an overview for this, what you're looking to get approved with your special land use request.
I'm asking for approval to build a barn that is slightly larger and in front of the rear plane of my home based on the lay of the land where it makes a lot of sense. Lowest impact. I don't want to pave through the property and put the barn. My house is a long way off the street as it is. The proposed site is about 600 feet away from 34 Mile. Our neighbor to the north is Ford Proving Grounds. The other three neighbors, east, west, and south, we have a letter of support from my neighbor to the east. Other two neighbors are here tonight to offer their support. This is where it's at, makes the most sense for me, but it also by far is the lowest impact on the property.
Okay. Before we have Joe give us a rundown, anybody have any questions? You've had a chance to look at the material.
I do have one question.
Okay.
A lot of homes, large homes, have a lot of land, but there's a homeowners association involved. I'm assuming in your situation, there is none.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to have Joe give a rundown of what he's reviewed of your application. So you can have a seat or just hang tight. We may call you back up with more questions.
Okay.
Sure. So we're in the R1 zoning district. As he noted, it is south, directly south of the Ford Proving Grounds. Proposing a detached accessory building. It's 2,400 square feet. Lot's 12.79 acres. So our ordinance has a couple of things that we deal with on a pretty regular basis regarding accessory buildings. We have a maximum permitted size of accessory buildings on a lot between 10 and 15 acres. It's 3,270 square feet. Special land use approval is required for a larger structure or a total of a larger area of all the structures on the site. The proposed structure is going to be constructed in addition to 2 existing accessory buildings. That brings the total accessory building area on the site to 4,008 square feet. So that special land use is required for that amount of square footage. It's about 22.5% over when you consider the total. The building's also located in a side yard, protrudes a little into the front yard. It is further from the front lot line than one of the existing accessory buildings. And the location in the side yard also requires special land use approval. So there are 2 special land uses at play here. So on the site right now, there's a pond up by the road, and then you've got a 1,320 square foot accessory building and a 288 square foot chicken coop plus the house. I put a photo of the site from the road right in the letter. You can see with the arrow, well, you can't really see the existing accessory building because it's behind some trees. And the new building is proposed kind of off to its left when you're facing the property from the street. All the surrounding properties on the south side of 34 Mile are zoned R1, just like this one is. And then you got the proving grounds to the north. We looked at setbacks. Accessory buildings are required to be a setback a minimum of 12 feet from another building. This one is 20 feet from the other accessory building there, so that standard's met. In the R1 district, accessory buildings are supposed to be set back a minimum of 10 feet from any side or rear lot line. This is 20 feet from the nearest side lot line. It's 651 feet from the rear lot line. It's also set back 600 feet from the front lot line. The house is about 637 feet from the front lot line. And then the other accessory building is about 581. So this building is set back a little bit further than that one, but just falls slightly in front of the house. 3 accessory buildings are permitted on a lot this size, so this would be the third. We looked at the building height as well. We allow 29 feet for a building over 850 square feet. So the proposed height of this one is 19 feet, 7.5 inches. So that meets that height requirement. Peak of the roof is 23 feet, 1.5 inches. But we measure our height to the midpoint between the peak and the eave. So that's why those numbers are different. We have 4 standards for special land use approval for accessory buildings that are listed in the letter. We look for proportionality between the size of the lot, the street frontage, and the size of the accessory structure. We look for the accessory structure to be in harmony with the principal structure, the environment, and topography. I did include a topographical map at the end of the letter so that you can see what the topography of the site is like. Materials and colors of the proposed accessory building match or complement the principal building, and then an accessory building permitted in a side yard does not exceed the ground floor square footage of the principal building. So, photos of all the buildings on the site were provided. There was an elevation of the proposed building as well. Proposed building, kind of has its own style relative to the other buildings on the site. I don't know about the materials necessarily, so we should ask for a few more details about that. They do look like they're similar to the existing larger building. The existing accessory building does have some trim at the ground level of a different color, whereas I don't see that on the plan that's being provided here. So I guess to sum up, the building requires special land use approval because it exceeds the size permitted by right for an accessory building on a lot between 10 and 15 acres, and because it's located in both the side and front yard. It's a special land use, so the Planning Commission makes a recommendation to the Township Board, which issues the final approval or denial. And as I said, there is a topographical map of the site on the last page of the letter. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Commissioners, questions to Joe based on his summary.
So based on the square footages, what's allowed by the ordinance is a balance of 1,662 square feet.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Meaning that's what he could build with no, within the limit, based on what he already has.
Within that limit.
Right, with no special
Still
land
need the
use approval.
SLU for the side yard.
Yeah, that's correct.
But it's reduced. The ordinance requires a reduction because you cannot be over the maximum cannot be greater than the ground floor square footage of the principal residence, so it reduces it. Normally, we'd be starting with a number of 3,270 square feet, just allowed, based on the parcel size, but the principal structure is 2,759 square feet. And since we've already got an existing structure in the front yard, my interpretation is we are required to go with a lower number. Would you agree with that, Joe?
Let me look at the exact wording here, because, let's see.
It's in your memo.
Yeah. it's
Number
right
4.
here, Number 4, accessory building permitted in a side yard does not exceed the ground floor square footage of the principal building. The wording there seems to treat, see, it refers to a building, it doesn't refer to the total of all buildings, so I think each building probably has to be taken individually there.
Each building individually?
Yeah, because it does.
My guess is it was never accounted for that there would be 2 side yard accessory buildings.
Right, yeah. I think there might be language we need to look at to clarify that, but it does say an accessory building, so I think we probably have to think about each building on its own in that case.
Let me pull up the ordinance here. So we just worked on this. Okay, it says in 161.5.1.a.11, it says the maximum gross floor area of accessory buildings,
Right.
plural, shall be as set forth in the table, though in no instance shall an accessory building on a lot 2 acres or less. So, my reading on it is it's cumulative.
Well, but I think they're different. I looked for this language, I didn't see it, now I know why, because it's specific to the SLU, I think.
It is,
Which is
yeah.
the, because I think, Rick, what you're saying is that is specific to the parcel size, the total allowable accessory building space.
Yes.
Specific to a side yard building is, it cannot exceed the floor print of the principal, the ground floor of the square footage of the principal building. But I don't think it says that in the total. The issue is, this would be the second side yard accessory, and I don't think it accounts for that.
Right.
So the consensus is individual then?
Yeah, I think we got to look at each building. Neither building could be larger than the existing, than the home.
That would be reasonable and customary is from what you've seen in other municipalities?
Yeah, and I think if we wanted to clarify that language, we certainly could look at doing that. If we wanted it to.
Okay, but
Cumulative.
as at this point in time, we got to go with a
Yes.
literal intent of the
I would
ordinance.
say you go with the literal language.
And so
Follow the language of the ordinance.
Jared's concurring with you, so we rely on your expertise, so the square footage requesting an additional 2,400 square feet in side yard, that does not exceed the 2,759 square feet of the principal residence.
Right, yeah. it's
Okay, so that would be
2,400 square
allowed
feet.
there.
Yeah.
And I have a question, a couple of questions for the applicant and the Orchard Construction gentleman. Okay, pull up some pictures here. Okay, so this is the principal residence, okay? So, and it looks like you've got, a pretty attractive existing accessory structure that's in your front yard, correct? So some of the design elements I'm seeing in that are shingle roof, multicolor. It's got a multicolor trim and a multicolor skirt, and also with windows. So now when I look at the sketch from Orchard Construction, it looks to be a very basic full construction building, all metal roof. And, for our special land use, as Joe already shared, under item number 3, it says the materials and colors of the proposed accessory building shall match or complement the principal building. Well, we know that's not possible, and especially since your current accessory building does not. So I'm thinking that what we should be looking at is trying to take and match up the appearance of your proposed new building to your existing.
Okay.
Would it be acceptable to modify the part of the building that faces front? Like I'm saying, and I guess what I would say is the front of the building, from the front, you're not going to see the roof whatsoever because the gable is running with the property. But if we were to put two-tone steel on the building, put a wainscot on it, put a couple windows in the front, it would then look very similar to what the building front on the existing building looks like.
What we have considered in the past is allowing for a metal roof, but also complementing or matching is the best as possible the color of your existing structure.
Well, I'm not sure what color are the shingles, black,
Brown.
brown?
Yeah.
You can very easily put a brown metal roof on that would match the color.
Yeah.
And the color of the metal could very easily match
Yeah.
the colors that are close to the other barn. Of course, there's going to be not
So
exact.
the entranceway is going to be, it'll be towards the rear of the property, is that correct?
The doors are meant to face the house.
Okay.
So from the street side, it would look similar to the existing building.
Okay, so the street side facing 34 Mile Road, that'd just be the pass-through door?
I don't think there's any doors on the roadside.
Okay.
That's not the way it's drawn.
It's not, this is, yeah, so
Is this the roadside?
this might be the roadside. This would have either been north or south. This would have been facing the house. So there's a few variables here that maybe didn't get totally ironed out on the sketch. This is the gable side, so.
And the gable side is facing the road.
Yeah, did you see you're seeing the pass-through door that I'm referring to?
Like the personnel door? Yes.
Yeah, yep.
So, yeah, I'm not certain whether he had that to the front or the rear of the property.
But the skirt,
That's what he's asking, though, is you want to know what's facing the road.
well, I mean, I was just asking about that because I saw it on your drawing. So I call it pass-through door, personal door, whatever you want to call it. But towards the matching, or what's Joe's exact words here again? It's match or complement. Those are pretty strong words. We're trying to be flexible. If my personal opinion, I'd like to see, as many of the styling cues off your existing building on the new building, and the ones that are obvious to me are multicolored trim. Personally, I'd be willing to support the metal roof that's a similar color to your shingles on the other building. And I already say windows in the multicolor skirt, and of course the base color of the metal sheathing to be close in color, but not clashing it. It can contrast, or could contrast rather. So, I mean, those are my interest in it.
Well, the soffit and fascia can be the same color as the roof. So as the roof comes down, the fascia, the soffit underneath, there's a 1-foot overhang on the building, so it's not just a standard, it's not a plain Jane type bolt-on. It's got an overhang all the way around. The soffits will probably be a different color than the walls, so that would offset what the roof looked like. It would look nicer across the front. Putting two-tone steel on it to give it a wainscot look so that it doesn't have one solid thing, that would be a very easy thing to do on the part that's facing the road. I don't know if it needs to be done on the other sides of the building.
Well, it's on the other building, and, you know, it's a little bit of additional construction costs, but I think it'd be an asset to your property having that.
It's not huge.
I'm open to it.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
huge. We can do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, so as many of the styling cues, and windows are optional too. I think you got a nice building, existing building there already, so that's what I'm recommending that you benchmark off of.
Okay.
And you know, make it an asset to your property. Really, if you're
Sure.
trying to store stuff, but, you know,
I want it to look nice as much as anybody else and
Yeah.
be consistent with the property.
and, you know, metal roofs are becoming more popular now, so, I mean, holding to a shingle roof, that, I think, may be unreasonable. So, enough said. Any other comment?
Are you good, Rick?
I'm good for now.
Good for now, okay. Anne Marie?
Yeah, there's a question for Joe. We just, on the accessory building ordinance itself, that's only about 3 years old, correct?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. So, and we set the standard, the size, maximum allowable size for all accessory buildings on the property based on the acreage. Am I correct that what he's proposing is about 800 square feet over, which he's allowed by ordinance?
Something like that,
I think
yeah.
it's
It was 20
738. 738.
Yeah.
square feet over.
738?
It was 22.5%.
Well, I thought we were looking at it individually.
Well,
still got
for that, you got to look at the cumulative because it references the cumulative size. So,
I'm confused.
Rick, the individual piece is related to the SLU and a side yard
yeah,
building.
we're
So
granting.
specifically to a side yard accessory building.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that we have to look at individually because that's how the ordinance currently reads.
Right.
for
Okay, so
SLU.
that would-
But the part that you referenced earlier for the 3270, that is cumulative.
Right.
So
Right.
Okay, so,
there is still, I think that is ultimately the final number, but as we look at the specific buildings on the SLU part.
okay, I'm getting a clearer understanding. So
Okay.
we start out with 3270, and he's already got 1320 for the existing building, and then 288 for the woodshed, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that being said, he's left with 1,662.
That's exactly the number.
Magic
that
number,
Randy had.
that was Randy's number. Okay,
That's what I got also.
so that would be the maximum rather than 2,400.
Right, that was one of the two special land uses we were aiming
Right.
for, right? The location and the overall
Location and
size.
the size is 738 square feet more.
Yeah, if you, because your request as submitted is for 2,400 square feet, correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's
Okay.
that's the size of the new building.
So it may be premature, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you were willing to revise your request from 2,400 to no greater than 1,662 square feet, and also agreeing to some of the stipulations that are not actually agreeing, but basically they need to be, we can only suggest. You need to state what you're willing to do to make your proposal potentially more desirable by this commission for recommendation to the board.
So I
So,
guess a couple things that we'd like to point out about it too is that the size issue being 738 square feet more, he's over 12 acres. I understand that you have parameters. It's 11 to 15, and over 15, it goes up another, I'm not sure, 1,000 square feet or something like that that you can have on the building. He's only 2 acres away from being at that limitation. And I'm assuming when the planning commission put those parameters in place, they were chosen based upon this area parcel, and what they think could go on top of that. This being a special land use, with the building being 600 feet off the road, it's not objectionable to anyone that's there. All of his neighbors are in agreement with the fact that they don't have any issue with the size that he's putting up. The reason that he wants to put the 2,400 square feet up is that he has a camper that comes and goes. He has farm equipment. He's thinking about getting a hay baler, some other things to keep operating some of the items on this property. So one thing that we do is we always recommend to people to build as big as you possibly can, because you never want to go back and do it again. We can't come back to the board a second time, because this is the last bite at the apple for us. The extra 738 square feet in terms of the proportionality of 12 and a half acres or almost 13 acres of land is really, I think, kind of insignificant, other than I do understand it is part of your ordinance that you can't go above that. With a special land use, you can, based upon the parameters of what the property is. He has no neighbors across the street other than Ford Motor. That's never going to change as far as we would probably ever be here. So he's not going to encumber anyone with that. His neighbor to the, which one is?
East, Mike.
East, built a new house. His bedroom window looks straight across at where Mike is keeping his stuff. So the building going up is going to complement his property as well as Mike's. He's trying to make sure that he has enough room for whatever he's doing, putting stuff in, kids' activities, all the other things that go along with life as we, keep collecting things. In terms of making the building look more attractive, that's not an issue. We can take care of that pretty easily, and we do that on a regular basis. This building itself, too, with that setback, it's set back behind the front of the other two parcels, where it's sitting. So it's even behind the other homes that are sitting on the road. I think that he has a lot of pluses in his column, hopefully to, secure this, these two approvals.
You make some interesting points. I said you make some interesting points.
Thanks.
And I need to share with you that as recent as 2021, this administration's planning commission, we had multiple meetings, and we did increase the allowable sizes of accessory buildings in a township, recognizing that, we're a rural community,
Right.
and we needed to open up the.
I know you did. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But as you know, because you do this every day.
Right.
So, but sharing for others that are here, this SLU has got two segments to it. One segment is the location of the building, front yard, and the other is the size. So personally, I'm willing to get behind the size, depending on what stipulations that you would provide, again, to make the your proposal the most desirable as possible. A lot of that's based on what we've already discussed. Now, in answer to your question, what we allow here runs the risk of setting precedent. And, it's precedent, the word is used quite a bit, and, but the reason we use it is because if we are not careful, what we do for this SLU becomes the new standard. And basically, it just indirectly rewrites the zoning ordinance. Because this meeting is being recorded, it's retrievable on the web, and plus everything, all the minutes are Freedom of Information Act retrievable. So we're held to pretty high standards here.
And I understand that, and I appreciate that. I truly do, because I think zoning is a very important aspect of a community. It protects everyone's property values. But this is a special land use. It's not a, there's special circumstances. We're trying to demonstrate that we're not going to be encumbering the public. We're not going to be bothering the public. We're more than willing to make the building a lot more attractive than just a standard pole barn. I think the drawing that was submitted was probably not pretty enough, to really show what it would truly be. So putting the wainscot on, putting the trim on, those kind of things, the overhangs in the building, that's an easy fix. And he's more than willing to do that.
Okay. Well, I appreciate everything you're sharing, and again, my personal position on this, I can get behind the location, but I cannot get behind the increase in square footage. And, you know, I have a building that's a little over 2,000 square feet, and I got a 3-car attached garage, and that's a lot of square footage. I got 2 substantial sized boats in my accessory building, and, well, you know, I can put 3 in there easily. So, a lot of stuff. So,
We do have
Sorry.
the hearing. We'll do the hearing in a moment, though.
so anyway, I'm doing most of the talking here when I,
Yep, Anne Marie, do you want to?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. We get accessory building special land use request almost monthly. And each and every month, it seems like the request is over the parameters set forth in our ordinance that was just revised within the last few years. And certainly, everybody can make an argument, if you will, as to why the size really shouldn't matter in their particular case. What Rick says about precedent, I personally agree with, and I find that a 22 point something overage above our standard that's really big. And just my thoughts.
Okay. Any other thoughts, commissioners?
I agree with you too, that the location makes sense, but the size overage is not justifiable.
You willing to go down in size?
So the reason that we came to the size that we did, foolishly never having done this sort of thing before, I didn't realize how many rules, regulations, and restrictions there are, even out on a parcel. The goal was far larger. So when his son and I first sat down and did this, he said, we've got to pare this thing down, get it to the lowest possible square footage for the greatest chance at success. So we're considerably reduced. But yeah, the cost of building it and the fact that it won't serve the purpose. I understand you have a couple boats in your barn. I don't really have anything exceptional at this point, but when I run down the short list of things I do have, my barn is crocked and I already have a ton of stuff outside. And I don't just want it not outside because it just rusts and turns into not good equipment anymore, but Mike's looking at it. And he'll never complain, but it's all sitting out in the yard because here again, that's where it makes sense for it to be. And I wanted to get that inside. And going 4,000, 3,000 down to 2,400, frankly, I'm not 100% sure that that's even going to get us to the finish line. But with his son's encouragement, that was the number we came down to, you know, so.
one thing I didn't touch on that I want to share with you, and you may have already given it thought, you got the chicken coop. You know, if you were to eliminate the chicken coop, that takes you from 1662 up to 1950.
That would mean divorce. My wife loves the birds. She's got her things going. I can't take that from her. What am I going to do? You know, it's not just about me. It's about the two of us doing this thing together. So I have to tread lightly.
Well, I understand your comment. I really do. But, you know, our divorce comes from the community we serve. If we make decisions based on if-then-else logic and, you know, under these conditions, we won't be here.
What if you went down to 40 by 50, that's 2,000?
Well, I mean, I don't think it, yeah, maybe.
Well, would it work for you? I mean, could you?
Yes and no, you know? But yes.
Can we ask a question then of the board then? If we were to modify the size of the building that we're looking to put up, rather than a 40 by 60, maybe make it a 40 by 50, we'd be cutting 400 square feet off of that. So we would only be 338 square feet over.
Can you verify that, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would take 400 square feet off, so you'd wind up at, hang on.
338 over.
Well, it's got to be below 11% then, because if the 738 was 22.5%, we're taking 400 off. We're taking over half off of what we were asking for, so it's going to be below 11 or 10, 11%.
Yeah, it's going to be somewhere in the range of 11% over at that point, roughly. It brings it down, it brings the percentage overage down quite a lot.
I'm doing most of the talking. I'd like to hear what the other commissioners have to say.
It brings it down, but it still doesn't justify the special land use, in my opinion.
It's actually more like 9%.
Yeah, I wasn't on the commission at the time when it was revamped, but my understanding was that this was a common occurrence and that it was revamped to help kind of bring us up to par and maybe then some with surrounding communities in terms of what was allowable.
We did benchmark Ray Township, Washington Township, for sure come to mind. I'm not sure about Oakland Township, but I think Lennox Township was involved.
Yeah.
Similar size municipalities.
Oakland Township has a different process where the larger you go, the further you have to be off the property line. I don't think they have a size limit. It's going to be based upon how far you're off the property.
I'm going to strike my comment about Oakland Township. Likely we didn't benchmark them because they're a different county.
Yeah.
But Richmond Township, I believe, was involved. That was the other one. So,
I tend to agree with some of the comments from other commissioners. Certainly the land itself, from the side yard perspective, that makes sense why you would want it in the side yard. I don't know that there's I guess I am struggling with the size thing as well, not because I don't think it couldn't work fine for you, but I think of what it means for everybody else that comes behind you. And to the comments around precedent, yeah, I think you are a little over halfway to the next size. I think the challenge is we don't have an intermediate step that justifies that today, so it kind of becomes another precedent if we start saying, well, 12 and a half justifies larger than.
I think if the ordinance was antiquated, and this was something we did a lot, but being that it was just revisited, to jump even 10% over that shows failure on our part. That's a big, we're not talking 1-2%. Even 10% over just blows away what we just agreed to do within the last year and all the revisions. So is there any way we can get that, can you make that building size work according to the township plans that's already in place?
I think we'll kind of go back to the drawing board and see what's going to make sense between, the cost of building, which is going to be very similar. As a matter of fact, maybe more. Well, not more, I guess, if it stays on the side, but I got to think about things. If it's not going to go in this area and serve the purpose, then I kind of want to think it through. I don't want to say yes now and regret it,
The reason I'm saying is that I'm not hearing a lot of sticking points on the side setbacks, the front setbacks. It seems to be the size of the structure. I'm just saying if that.
Well, and if I can say.
Could be taken care of, that would probably.
If I could, like the size is the most crucial part for me. That's why I want to be cautious about what I do. If someone said, hey, put it in this spot that's essentially a wetland, and not really, but it's deep and it's going to disrupt, I mean, I can live with it. But it's the size that's to go too small. If it gets me 70% of what I'm trying to achieve, I've still failed to do what I set out to do. So I want to think it through and see if getting part of the way to the finish line, 5 items outside versus 12. At that point, does he care? Does it look any different to the neighbor? Does it look any different to us? I just want to kind of think it through and make sure I'm not making a bad decision.
What if we request that this gets tabled?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah,
And give us a little bit of time to,
exactly.
work on
Prior-
this, and then we can come back next month.
Prior to tabling it, you do have to hold the hearing.
Right. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's just do that.
So we do need to open up the public hearing, give anyone here that's here to talk about it a chance to talk about it.
Okay.
And then we'll make a motion on. All right. So with that, I make a motion to open the public hearing for the 5050 34 Mile Road special land use request at 6:56 PM.
Second.
Motion by Vincent, seconded by Boyce. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, the public hearing is now open, so if you are here to speak about this special land use request, support or against, you're welcome to come up to the podium. State your name, address, and share your comments with us, please.
Hello, my name is John Kipper, and I have 12 acres immediately adjoining his property along the south edge. And I have to say about Mike, he's moved in, we've been there 24 years. He's moved in, what, 7 years ago? 6. And he's done nothing but make major improvements to that property and increase the value of all of our properties around it. He has just cleaned it up. It was derelict for a few years. The people were couldn't sell it, and Mike came in and has done nothing but improve it. So I 100%, and I do see the equipment that he keeps on the side, and it can't be good for it. He can't. He needs to move this stuff, large trailers and stuff, into this into a larger facility. So I, having 12 acres and I border his whole property, I 100% support if you could make a variation for him to have the building he needs, because like I say, our property values have all gone up just by him moving in and cleaning up that property and doing everything. He's doing the best he can to keep the equipment, out of sight of everybody, but it doesn't change the fact that the equipment's getting ruined. And it is viewable to people that are driving by and stuff, whereas it would all be undercover, and I think it just would be aesthetically a lot better. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Dave Zaglin. I live to the west side of Mike Harler. All I could say is that I concur with what John said, but I also say that on my behalf, Mike parks all that stuff on the east side, which would be on the opposite side of my house, so I don't have to see it. So on that, I just like to everybody, he does have a lot of equipment that he keeps, so it would be nice that he could store it and not get ruined also.
Okay, thank you for those that spoke. Seeing nobody else coming, I move to close the public hearing at 6:59 PM.
Second?
Motion by Vincent, seconded by Hagelstein. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right. So I think we've heard, I think at this point, a desire to table it, give the applicant time to think more about some of the feedback he's received from the commission. And
How long do you need?
I'm sorry?
We meet every month.
Yeah, we'd like to be on next month's agenda.
A month is enough?
A month, yeah, it's more than enough.
Yeah, I'd like to submit a motion to table the special land use by Michael Harler at 5050 34 Mile Road for an accessory building in the side yard that currently exceeds the allowable square footage of our zoning ordinance, and also to give the applicant the opportunity to take into consideration input shared by all the commissioners with he today, and to come back in writing with a revised proposal for us to consider.
you want to say no later than the August?
Yeah, no later than our August Planning Commission meeting, and the exact date for that,
August 7th.
August 7th.
Second.
All right, motion by Hagelstein, seconded by Boyce. Dana, would you call the roll, please?
Kippitz,
Yes.
Boyce,
Yes.
Blaylock,
Yes.
Barnett,
Yes.
Hagelstein,
Yes.
Cant,
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thanks a lot for your time.
Sure, thank you.
All right. Moving on to 7B is the SLU request for 78837 Harvest Lane, Dietland.
Hi there. Bob Dietland, 78837 Harvest Lane. I'm also bringing in a special request for auxiliary building, but really it's just to put it in the side directly in line with my current garage in the side yard. Differences, I do live in an HOA, so, and it is conforming to the HOA rules. We've met, I believe they've submitted a letter as well. It'll have to be 100% brick. It'll have to match the house, and look nice and proper and add value to the home as well as others in the neighborhood. I also submitted a response to a report with some clarifications and zoomed in. I know I sent drawings that you really couldn't read unless you had the digital copies, so I'm here to answer any questions on that stuff as well and brought in full sizes too if need be, or I can leave them.
It may be in your supplemental documentation. What's the square footage of the accessory building that you're requesting?
It's just under 1,300 square feet, so it's about, it's like almost like 42 or so, 44 by 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is 1,292 square feet.
Yep.
Thank you, Anne Marie.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions for the applicant before we turn it over to Joe?
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question. Mr.
Yeah.
Dietland. The front of the building, that as it's on the roadside,
Yeah.
is that going to be exactly parallel with the front of, I believe it would be your garage?
Yes. Yep.
So there'll be,
Yeah, the garage has like a little bump out just
That's what it looked
to look right. So we made the auxiliary garage have the same bump out and mirror it. And the intent is those would be perfectly parallel in a line.
They're basically trying to create another garage, like kind of facing each other, if you will.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
It looks like your materials are matching your principal structure.
Yeah. Yeah. According to the HOA, the bricks have to match. It has to be at least 80% brick, but at that point we decide just to do 100% brick.
Okay.
And it'll look nicer. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, any other questions for the applicant before we turn it over to Joe? All right, Joe, take it away.
Right, so he's on about a 5-acre lot. So he gets an allowance of 2,720 square feet for accessory buildings. There isn't one right now, so the number he gave us a moment ago is compliant with that limit, 1,292 square feet. I did have a few issues with the legibility of the plan, so I asked some questions, and I'll pose those again. So we've just been told that the intended setback mirrors the setback of the existing home. And then the 12-foot setback to the principal building is also required. What is the setback to the building, to the house?
It's about, I think, 55 feet.
5 feet. Okay. So that will be met. I'm just going to make notes of these. I did provide a topographical map in the letter, so you can see kind of what the site looks like. There is a very significant drop in the site behind the house. Actually, kind of starts in the middle of the house, and then there's a walkout in the back, and then it keeps going down to, there's a big circle in the topography, and that's like a pond. So that is the reason for the location that's been given. It's in a subdivision, developed with other single-family homes. I was also looking for front and side setbacks, so are you able to provide those now?
Yeah, so from the street to the front of the building, you mean, and like the side yard? Yeah. I believe it's 145 feet. Let me just look here in my notes and drawing too. Yeah, 145 feet to the road, and then 58 feet to the property line, on the nearest property line, the side yard.
Okay. So those setbacks do meet the,
Said 145 from the street and 58 side yard?
Yep.
right, okay.
Yeah.
So it has to be 10 feet from the side yard. So 2 accessory buildings would be permitted on a lot this size. This would be the only one in this case. There's not one already. This is located in a side yard, which is the reason for the special land use request. Look at building height. We allow 29 feet. I did not see a height on the plan, or if it was there, I couldn't read it, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I fixed it, yeah. About 22 feet.
22 feet, okay. And then we have the same list of criteria as before. You did submit some photos of the site, elevations and floor plans of the proposed building was also included. In general, the accessory building did seem to mimic the appearance of the principal building, and tonight we've been told that it's the same brick, and it's going to be 100% brick. Again, requires special land use because of its location in a side yard. It's a special land use, so you'll be making a recommendation to the township board, which will issue the final approval or denial. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions for Joe based on the information he's provided? Okay.
Open the public hearing.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion at 7:09 PM by Boyce, seconded by Hagelstein. Open the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? All right, public hearing for this is now open.
Good evening, Commissioners. Mike Philbrook, 7320 37 Mile Road, and 78628 Harvest Lane with adjoining property. I've been a 30-year resident of Harvest Meadows subdivision. I can tell you, I was the first, basically the first home that, of all the residents that are in there. We have a very strict guidelines in which our architectural committee looks at these special land uses and also the materials that they're made out of. Bob is looking to build his building that exceeds our expectations by far. He's doing 100% brick, which we only look at 80% brick. Could be vinyl. It's all going to be all cement. The location, the property just to the west of his, has exactly the same mirror image of what he's looking to do with another accessory building, 100% brick, and its garage doors are facing each other the same way that Bob's looking to do. We encourage what he's doing. It's going to definitely increase the values of all of our properties. Aesthetically, it's going to look great. We can't wait till he gets going on it, and I'm here to answer any questions on behalf of the HOA. I know you received a letter from our president. Everybody in the subdivision that has reached out to me and the people that I have talked to are all 100% in favor of this. So feel free to ask any questions if you have any. If not, I would hope that you would make the recommendation to the board to go ahead and approve Mr. Dieland's accessory building. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else here for this? Seeing none, I move to close the public hearing at 7:10 PM.
Second.
Motion by Vincent, seconded by Barnett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Public hearing is now closed. Back to the commissioners. Someone like to make a motion?
Hearing no additional comments, correct? None from any other? I'd like to submit a motion recommending to the board for approval of the accessory building at 78837 Harvest Lane, submitted by Robert, and allowing for the building to be in the side yard, not the front yard, and also it's the applicant's stipulation to build his building out of 100% matching materials, namely the 100% brick, which exceeds our ordinance requirement, is also a factor in motivating me to submit this motion.
I think we need to add why he can't build in the rear yard. So there's the
Sure,
dramatic drop.
yeah, absolutely. I'd like to amend my motion to include the reason that the building requires to be located in the side yard is there's a clear topographical hardship, a significant drop-off in the rear property.
Was that a second to the motion?
Second.
Is that seconded?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we got a motion by Hagelstein, seconded by Barnett. Any discussion before we go to vote? Hearing none. Dana, would you call the roll, please?
Boyce?
Yes.
Blaylock?
Yes.
Cupits?
Yes?
Gibson?
Yes.
Cant?
Yes.
Hagelstein?
Yes,
Barnett?
Yes.
thanks for the
Motion
input,
carries.
Andy.
So this is a recommendation of the board. They meet in 2 weeks, and they'll have the final say to approve.
They meet in next week, correct?
Next week, sorry, we're a week late.
Yeah.
Sorry, next week for the board. Thank you. It always throws me off. All right, moving along. 7C is the Muir rezoning, which has been tabled until this month. So
Yes.
you guys ready, Dan?
Turn that a little bit.
Okay. Dan Walker here on behalf of the property owner, Jessica Muir. We came several months ago. We were not aware that the property was over 5 acres at the time. I think it's been tabled twice. The last remaining thing that we needed was the impact study, which has been completed. And we have Caitlin here from Wade Trim, who conducted the study and put it together. But basically same as before. There's a 5.8 acre piece essentially on the corner of Old Van Dyke and M53 that is currently zoned O1, and we are seeking to have that rezoned to C3.
Okay. I know this was tabled, so we had, Joe, you'd already given us some info on this. Oh, wait, your report's in here, sorry. I saw that.
Yeah, I do have a report.
Okay.
And it was included in there. I have not seen the subsequent materials, though, so keep in mind that my report reflects the initial submission.
Okay.
You haven't seen the impact study?
I have not seen that, so.
Did I not send it to Joe?
I never saw it, so.
Would it be helpful to get a rundown of the impact study?
Well, it's 155 pages.
Is there an executive
I
summary?
say, yeah, rundown, not a read-through.
I can do that if you'd like.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm Caitlin Haben. I'm a professional planner at Wade Trim. So I usually work on the other side of the aisle. And if you want to follow along in the report, I'll give you a few page numbers just so people can follow along with the meat and potatoes, essentially, of what this report is going over. So as you know, this subject property is located on Van Dyke Road at the intersection of then where you have M53 Van Dyke Highway. So it's located in that corner lot. Specifically, as you know, based on the aerial information that, again, you're required to do, and that's shown on page 5 of this report, is that it's currently an agricultural farm field. And so that's kind of the existing context of what it is now. Using a lot of the different required data based on your development impact report, it's required to use the county data to make sure, again, we're looking at all natural features and things of that nature, and so that's a bulk of the sourcing of this information. So looking at natural features specifically on the site, there is pretty much none. So it's not like there's a river or a stream or a drain that's located in this. There are a variety of different soils, so that's on page 7 of the report. These are typical soils, I would say, some of them agricultural, some of them your pretty standard drainage calculations and things of that nature. The property is relatively flat based on the topography information that's provided on page 8. There are no wetland areas specifically on the subject property. You have to go across Van Dyke into the other farm field to be near any wetlands in that general area. As far as woodlands or wood coverage, so that's shown by Genesee County, shown by the county. There's a few spots, but it's, as I show in some of the different pictures on page 9, it essentially is showing like a cluster of mature trees that are provided along the right-of-way, either on Van Dyke Road or highway. And when we look at the impact analysis associated with the different land uses, so one of the things that specifically provides context to that I accidentally skipped over is located on page 4, talks about what's around our subject property. So there's agricultural to the north across Van Dyke Highway. There's agricultural to the south, as well as some residential dwellings. Across Van Dyke Road, you have some different residential dwellings, but also some vacant property that's there. Farther down on Van Dyke, you do have some zone C2 property farther down. So looking at the land use impacts, so now I'm on page 11, specifically of the report. The land use impact essentially is evaluating what are the potential concerns with a subject property. So with our proposed rezoning request, we're not saying it's going to be this. We do have inquiries associated with a gas station, potentially of that situation, but again, when you make these decisions, it's based on everything that could be in this zoning district. And so at the time of whatever the use and that would come forward with you, because it is a full new construction, it would require a site plan at a minimum, in which you would then have control, you would have conversation, you would have to meet your requirements, the county's requirements, the state requirements. Depending on the use that's proposed, it would have to go through the special land use process, in which you could have additional stipulations that are associated with those specific uses. So for some of those answers, we say that we're looking at the C3 zoning district. We want to comply with that. That would be a requirement of that applicant when they come forth. But the township would still have a say as part of that process, because right now it's an agricultural field. And so we're proposing to change that to something more commercial. Looking at the public utilities specifically, so we are located within the sewer district, and so there does appear to be sewer within close proximity on Van Dyke Road, and so there is capacity if we wanted to attach to that. In the situation regarding water, we would utilize probably an on-site well, which there's sufficient area there to do that. There's also able to handle any stormwater drainage. So later on in Appendix A is our concept plan. So this is showing a general typical commercial developments, also the cover of the report. The appendix one is an easier one to read, so look at that, not the cover page. But it's showing that this is a feasible property to handle a typical commercial size with a parking lot, with a detention area, retention area, to ensure that we're being responsible on our drainage. We look at public services, so regarding your police, schools, things of that nature, looking at the list of the C3 zone property or uses within said property. We don't feel that that would be necessarily something catastrophic that would majorly change the community from a public service standpoint. And that's something, again, you can evaluate on a case-by-case basis. If it is a special land use situation, you can then have that discussion, but it's not like we're proposing a Tesla facility which would cause dramatically different situation in an industrial type setting. We look at the land use analysis, so looking at your master plan, I understand that you are in the process of potentially updating that master plan. So being in 2016 was the last version, it is over 5 years, so it is due for that review. Looking at your goals and objectives, so you want to concentrate on the majority of commercial mixed-use development to be on 33 Mile Road and M53, where there is water and sewer infrastructure, and you have planned access ramps to Van Dyke Highway, as well as additional commercial nodes on Van Dyke and where the market would necessitate there is demand for those type uses. So in your current master plan, this project, a subject property, is located in your central planning area, which is intended to be for commercial shopping centers and industrial developments for the township. So it is looking at that potential commercial node. When looking at the future classification, it is shown as to be office. However, that is a non-residential use. And then getting closer to the end of the report, you have your economic impact, so evaluating different things. So you require a study that's associated with what is the feasibility, is there anything associated with, does office make sense? And so looking at the Gershman and Wakeman field, as well as the IBIS world reports, office uses essentially are not as in demand as they used to be. Part of that you could say is teleworking. Part of that is just a switch in that situation, but there's not as much of a demand for office. So that may be something you evaluate, as that's not a land use that's of great demand. Looking at page 15 and 16, if we're looking at gas stations, they have that as its own classification in a different report, as noted. There is a potential increase in showing growth in that market area specifically. If you take a step back and look at the general one that talks more about the retail or commercial components associated with that sector, that's also showing growth. They're diversifying services. There still is demand potentially for that type uses that are in your C3 district, but not in your OS1 in the same capacity. And there are currently no properties in the township that are C3, so we're asking to be part of that specific thing located near the primary highway. Appendixed in the report is the traffic impact study. The really skinny version of what that essentially says is there is already a level of service concern associated with Van Dyke Road into Van Dyke Highway due to the wait time, because the highway takes priority over the road. In looking at a few different, again, we have in that report a few different of those traffic counts for different uses. We use the required manual that's associated with best practice standards. We took the most intense operations, so that's your drive-through establishments. You can look at gas stations, it's a little bit lower, but it's in that same ballpark. And so what we see is that the northeast bound on Van Dyke Road into Van Dyke Highway, that is where you still see a low level of service. However, if you modify the signaling, that is a suggested alternative to fix the level of service concern. So that's the very skinny version of that other 50-page report.
Excuse me, could you repeat that last part one more time?
So in the scenarios that we talk about as ways to solve the problem with the level of service, is that the signaling could be adjusted to solve the level of service concern. So you just evaluate the timing of those signals, in which then you would have people not waiting as long, and that would improve your level of service.
Not waiting as long on Van Dyke.
Correct. So that's essentially the 17-page report and then the appendixed traffic impact study report. So tried to catch you up to speed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Joe, having heard all that now, you want to run us through your report?
Right, so as noted, it's a portion of an overall 38.9 acre parcel that started to be kind of split off along Van Dyke, and it's the northern portion that is right there at the Van Dyke M53 intersection. So I won't repeat some of the things that were already said about, the surrounding zoning and surrounding uses and things. But I'll just talk a little bit about kind of the master plan, a couple of other notes that I've highlighted here. So the site does have a split designation in the 2016 future land use map. The portion zoned R1 B is designated low to moderate density single family residential. And the portion that's zoned O1 is designated office. So they zone to match basically. I can skip that technical note, I guess. So we've got our usual list of questions that we ask when we're considering a request for rezoning. So I'll just go through those for everyone's benefit. It's been a long time since we talked about this particular request. So the first question is the proposed zoning consistent with the master plan? So generally, the master plan does acknowledge the northern tip of the property is appropriate for a non-residential use and applies an office designation to the parcel. The Planning Commission can consider the economic context of the moment right now when discussing whether office is still an appropriate designation there, and whether the proposed district would constitute a reasonable alternative to the future land use map. Second question, what impact would the requested zoning have on public services and utilities and natural features? We didn't have a specific intended use noted here, just commercial. C3 district permits a pretty large range of uses, some of which are fairly intense. A couple of those were mentioned during the discussion of the traffic impact study, or could bring with them some externalities. I put the full list of permitted uses and special land uses at the end of the letter so that you can see what those are. 3, has the applicant provided evidence that the property cannot be developed or used as zoned? I mean, not as such. I think we probably are all relatively aware of what the office market is like right now. Next question is the proposed zoning district and potential land uses compatible with surrounding uses? So, though the site's surrounded by residentially zoned land on all sides, it's not super close to existing dwelling units for the most part. There are a couple nearby. The nearest are on Old M53 and across Van Dyke. Home across Van Dyke is about 200 feet away. So this is an entrance to an under construction, there's an entrance to an under construction subdivision across Van Dyke as well. That's more constructed now than it was when this letter was first written. Will the proposed zoning place a burden on nearby thoroughfares? And if so, how would this burden compare with the existing zoning district? We heard a summary of the traffic study. Ultimately, the answer to the question is very highly dependent on the final use of the property. As I said, C3 has a wide range of permitted uses. Some of them are fairly intense and some of them are not very intense at all. So that would vary a lot based on what the final use winds up being. And office uses are actually permitted in the C3, so what's currently permitted there is something that could potentially be built under the C3 designation. Is there other land currently available for this use? There's no land zone C3 in the township. It's unknown what specific use might occur on the lot based on the application materials, but as I said, this would be the only C3 parcel in the entire township. Will development of the site under proposed zoning be able to meet zoning district requirements? As far as the dimensional requirements of the ordinance, setbacks and things, it certainly could. It's a large enough parcel to meet all the setbacks. Is rezoning the best way to address the request, or could the existing zoning district be amended to add the proposed use as a permitted or special land use? Again, we don't really have a specific use that we're looking at here yet. But in general, the office district is intended to provide for office uses, and adding other uses to the office district is not really in keeping with the intent of the district. So putting a bunch of commercial uses in there, I don't think would make a lot of sense, just from the perspective of your previous master planning and how that informed the formulation of the office district. Has there been a change in circumstances and conditions since adoption of the master plan that would support the proposed change? To the extent that changes occurred, there's a couple things. There's a new subdivision going in across Van Dyke, and then demand for office development is kind of the other major change. It's more of a market change than an actual change in the physical conditions of the area, but we have seen a fairly substantial collapse in demand for office development since COVID. Then finally, would granting the request result in the creation of an unplanned spot zone? So spot zoning is a process of singling out a small parcel of land for a use classification totally different from that of the surrounding area for the benefit of a single property owner and to the detriment of others. There is a bit of case law on this that gives us a 3-question test for spot zoning. And the 3 questions are: is the rezoning request consistent with the master plan for the area? Is the proposed zoning district a logical extension of an existing zoning district in the area? And would approving the request grant a special benefit to a property owner or developer? Again, at the end of the letter, there is a list of uses that are permitted in the O1 district. You can see that's a fairly compact list. Professional offices, not really much else. There is some allowance for certain commercial uses as special land uses, and it kind of imagines those as things like print shops and stuff that would directly serve office development. And it includes a couple of other sort of oddballs like funeral homes. And then the C3 district is intended to be the big commercial district that has kind of everything under the sun in it. That's a very long, I'm not going to try to summarize that list of uses. It's a very long list of uses. But it's all there for your review. Any questions?
Any questions for Joe?
I got a question, Joe. The second criteria for spot zoning, I was writing some notes down here, I didn't get that one.
Is the proposed zoning district a logical extension of an existing zoning district in the area?
Okay. Yeah.
Open the public hearing.
I have some comments about the impact statement, but I'd like to hear what the public has to say.
Okay. Motion to open the public hearing at 7:35 PM.
Second.
Seconded by Can. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, public hearing is open.
Carol Garcia, Twin Brook Drive. I'm totally opposed to having a gas station there. We got $1 million houses being built across the street from that spot where they want to build that gas station. And those people are going to have to look at that. Plus, the traffic is horrific already. I mean, to have that gas station there, it doesn't make sense. We already have 3. Why would we want another one? Well, we have 3 in Romeo, yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's 5 total. We don't need a gas station. You know, we moved out here to a rural area because because it wasn't so commercial and everything. We don't have a problem if they want to build houses over there in the bigger area, but a gas station, it doesn't make any sense when we already have so many. So I'm totally opposed to that. Thank you.
Gary Shellstack, Twin Brooks Drive. While they touched on the impact for the environment, do they have a contingency plan if there's a gas station in case there's a leak that affects our drinking water? I didn't hear, any plan for that. The intersection is bad enough as it is now. There's people running red lights constantly. This will just add to the problem on that intersection. I think further, and plus if you're gonna vote on changing it without any specific plan of what they're building, it's just giving them a free rein to do whatever they want. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Sam Michael from Trim Brooks. If you guys want to rezone it, that's up to you, right? But look at the traffic patterns there. I don't know what kind of study they did, but there's all kinds of traffic, and just tweaking the light, the timing of the light's not going to work, because you have that other light just further down. Traffic already on Van Dyke gets slowed down as you're going north. It's going to cause all kinds of aggravation. As far as a gas station, I thought our government said in 2030 there's no gas cars. Why are we building a gas station? Why not build a, one of the charging stations? Make more sense. Be first in the counties to have something like that. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Yeah, Don Griffin of Twin Brooks. I don't know what kind of study they did on the traffic signals there, but there's only 2 lanes going north and 2 lanes coming south with 2 outcuts for somebody turning left or right. And it's a very dangerous corner right now. Can't imagine with more traffic being there what it's going to be. You need to take a look at that no matter what you do there. It's something that needs to be looked at very seriously right now. I think anybody that lives there knows that because we all go out that end of the subdivision most of the time. And it's, you see a lot of things going on that you cringe at. The other thing was the water table there. What are you going to do about the water table if you start filling that area in there with commercial buildings? We've got all wells. How's it going to affect us? I don't know if that's been looked at or not. As mentioned before, there's gas stations within the next exit. There's 2 right on the corner, plus donut stands and anything else that's imaginable that you want to participate with. The signals were the main things that I was concerned about. There's something that should be done right now with that traffic area because it is dangerous. The building, anything that goes in there, we have a noise problem right now too on Twin Brooks. I think it's 100 decibels right now. One of our residents had it tested, and I think it's 102, Gary? Terry? Yeah, but what was the decibel? 102? 102 on the dBA scale. Yeah, and 102 was the maximum before they come in and do some kind of sound deadening fencing in there. So we'd like you to all take a look at that right now, because all those the trucks are downshifting coming down the expressway, and the noise in the residents are very loud. And especially in the wintertime when the trees lost their leaves and their branches and stuff, we have no sound deadening material at all. So if you could take a look at that, I appreciate it, and think twice about approving any gas stations or any commercial buildings that go in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, I move to close the public hearing at 7:42 PM.
Second.
Motion by Vincent, second by Kupitz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Public hearing is now closed. Back to the Planning Commission for discussion.
I have some comments.
Yeah.
Move closer to your mic.
Oh, thank you. One comment about a conclusion reached in the impact statement about this property being in the central planning area. Just because the property is in the central planning area, which it is, doesn't mean that the property is or was intended to be developed commercially, or that commercial use at that particular location is part of any planned development pattern. The concept plan reflects a sizable gas station. Again, I understand it's only a concept. With a commercial building that does appear suited to be a drive-through of some sort. There's a large amount of property that could be utilized there. Again, a restaurant drive-through would be an SLU. Another thing that struck me, and several of the people here have mentioned, is I don't believe anybody in the township is aware of any public desire for more gas stations in the area. We have 3 gas stations in downtown Romeo, 2 large gas stations just 2 miles away at the corner of M53 and 32 Mile Road, plus with the anticipated and approved Meyer location on the other side of the expressway. They invariably have gas stations, especially on a property that big. We're a rural bedroom community, and I think people do move here with the knowledge and acceptance of traveling to a nearby community for the occasional needs that would fall into a C3 classification. As Joe pointed out, it's C3 is got a lot of intense uses. It's wide open. Some of them aren't intense, but you're looking at opportunities for car washes, entertainment venues, recreation facilities, hotels, motels, and some of those, I believe, would have site impacts around neighboring properties. The last thing about the traffic study is I'm not sure that it properly anticipates the fact that the Pond Creek Estates is less than half built right now. Those are big houses. Karen Drive, which is the entrance, comes, as near as I can tell from the map, comes very, very close to the proposed, at least at this point, entrance exit from the concept plan. There is also 33 acres of planned residential development of some kind. I'm not sure what it'll be. It's zoned R1B correctly. That's going to be a lot of houses that are also flowing out onto Van Dyke and abut the property. We also have residential development to the south. The Timbers is all built up now, and those people, if they don't go south, their only way to go north is on Van Dyke. And I understand that there is perhaps plans for more residential to the south of the Timbers. So I think we've got a lot going on. Again, just observations. These are my opinions, not something to debate. With the applicant, certainly, I'd like to hear what the fellow commissioners have to say.
Okay, and I'll start off by saying the traffic study, as far as just switching a light, switching a timer, I think is almost ludicrous. We have a traffic problem here, we know we do. I don't believe it's just switching a light signal and then everything goes away. So I do believe there's a traffic issue. I said it's a little deeper problem than that. On the other side, though, there were comments about people moved here, they want the residential feel. I believe everyone was from Twin Brooks, am I correct on that? Yeah, most notes, okay. Twin Brooks is just east of a C2 zoning. So you guys didn't buy near residential properties, you bought commercial, you bought next to commercial properties. So even though the one we're talking about rezoning, you are currently right adjacent to a commercial property. And if and when that one gets built up, are we gonna be back here again talking about that?
It's C2 though, Darrell.
Correct, it's C2, it's not C3, but I'm saying it's not residential. So there will be something similar. So, I'm just saying, this could and probably will come up one day eventually. But again, back as far as the traffic study, I know the traffic's bad, I go through there. I would almost like to see the traffic fixed before we move on to the next step. That's just my personal opinion. But that's really all I have to say.
Thanks, Darrell.
I'd like to make a comment.
All right, we'd love to hear it.
I think a mistake was made a long time ago. We're trying to rectify. You have a landowner who I think is separate from those that own R1B below, to the south. And they would like to develop that land, earn some money off of it. That's why you buy land, unless you're going to live there. But I think the big mistake was made a long time ago. And my opinion of one is the best way for that owner to sell their property is to sell that property, to marry it up with the R1B to the south, or to buy a big part of that. And there was some consideration in the past about condominiums there, I think, in the last year or two. I'm not positive of that, but that's my recollection. And by itself, I don't see it being developed and be successful, not cause problems, additional problems for traffic. Because if it was combined with the R1B, you could have the entrance a little further to the south and occupy that top portion for whatever suits the development there. What could it be? If it's condominiums, maybe it's a recreation area, maybe it's a meeting area. Could it be a playground for kids in the neighborhood? I'm not an expert at real estate development, but I live in the area. I go by it every day, except when I don't go out for that day. And certain times of the day, it's absolutely horrible as far as the traffic. And I can't see anything going in there of a commercial nature, opinion of one, commercial nature that adds value to that area. You could even picture it as a parking lot for some shopping below. But again, I'm not an expert at marketing, and I'm not an expert at what's the best sellers these days, but to develop it in the way that is being discussed, in my opinion, by itself, will never fly.
Other comments from commissioners?
I think by rezoning it to C3 opens can of worms because there's just too many options available, both under the zoning and special land use.
Yeah, I share some of the comments here. I think traffic's getting bad irrespective of this proposed project. I think it's only going to get worse, and I don't know, I guess honestly, I don't know how much this project would impact that. There's a number of residential developments going on throughout the township, and I think that is just in general adding to traffic volumes. You've stated that. Yeah, I think when I look at this, it's not, should it be developed or should it be developed to C3? You know, it's going to get developed into something. I think it's a fair question to say, is there a need for office use? I'm not an expert, so I don't have a ton of data to go back on and make an informed decision. Joe, you've alluded to the fact that that is not as in of high a demand now than it maybe once was. And if this was to change, I certainly think the corner of Van Dyke and M53 would be a reasonable place to have commercial. What I am not extremely comfortable with is the open nature of it. I think in the past, when we've done some of this, it's been a little more of a known agreement of what we're agreeing to, and the open-ended nature of this, I think, is a little concerning.
Listening to other commissioners' comments regarding roads, and I'm going to preface this, it was a different time. It was many decades ago. I'm aging myself here, but I grew up near 16 Mile Road in Adams. And when my family first moved out to Troy, all the way from Crooks Road to Adams Road, it was a 2-lane crowned road. There was nothing. And so, and there were big investments coming in. The Somerset Apartments, huge complex, Somerset Mall, Saks Fifth Avenue, I think, was the first big one. And, you know, that at 16 and Coolidge, I mean, again, it's a little bit of a different animal, but or not a little bit, it's a large different animal. But the thing that my hope is that within our ability to put more emphasis on improving the roads is part of infrastructure improvements versus just doing developments and leaving the roads as is. And it seems like that's the trend. And, you know, it's more expensive to take and build roads now than what it was decades ago. But I'm just encouraging the Planning Commission to keep that in mind. And also, we just had a longtime Planning Commissioner, Mike Tremblay, move out of the community. And why did he move? Because he could not find a condo in Bruce Township. We are condominium deficient. Not apartment deficient, because we have 170 units going in over at 33 in McKay. But I've heard it from more than one person, and if there would have been a desirable condo rather for the Tremblays to move into, they'd still be living in this community.
Let's bring it back to.
Okay, but you know, I mean, it relates to condos.
Yep,
so anyway,
understood.
I'll end it there. Thank you.
I do question, I guess I know that there's resistance to some of the commercial development. There is a 5-acre commercial development at 33 and McKay going in, I think at least one restaurant, maybe two. I don't know where that drive-through that's ever going to materialize or not, but maybe not. I mean, that's just the reality we all are experiencing is this community is growing and it creates some challenges.
Mandy, I'm prepared to make a motion, but you look like you want to say something.
Well, I'm just thinking if we are considering opening up the master plan to look at properties to rezone, would this be something we would look at that time? And if we did, what would we potentially do? So it does seem like the C3 district has way too many options, and we wouldn't be able to approve something like that without a lot of conditions. And how do we put conditions around something that's so big? I don't know if we can.
Conditions have to be offered voluntarily by the applicant for a reason.
And that.
Yep.
But if it's not reasonable for it to be developed as it's currently zoned, what are our options to look
Well, no, but
Sorry,
No.
sorry, nope.
No.
Public hearing is closed.
I will take a crack at a motion.
Okay.
And I would look for my fellow commissioners to add on or amend as they think would be appropriate. So my motion is that we recommend to the board denial of the proposed rezoning of parcel 1401, 26100, 010 at the corner of Van Dyke and M53 from office 01 to commercial C3. And the reasons for my recommendation are, and I think are consistent with a lot of the comments that the commissioners have made, is this is an unconditional zoning request with no statement as to what the end use will be. Many of the permitted and special land uses in the C3 district are intense uses and not appropriate for what is primarily a residential area that's already suffering from a traffic issue. In addition, some of the C3 uses, not all of them, but some of them would draw significantly more traffic than the O2 district that's there at present. A second reason is that the proposed rezoning is inconsistent with the master plan and the future land use map, which specifically show that future commercial development is to be located south on Van Dyke near the mobile home park, or a mile south at 33 in McKay, and that any transition at this point to commercial or industrial uses to the north are on the other side of the expressway, and the few legacy commercial properties that exist 1 to 2 miles up Van Dyke. A third reason is that the commercial zoning is inconsistent with the existing and planned residential development to the south and the west of the property, and it's not a reasonable alternative to office. I think I'm on number 4. The proposed C3's rezoning or zoning district is not a logical extension of the existing zoning districts in the area. And lastly, approval of this open-ended rezoning request would grant a special benefit to the property owner, not granted to others.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Boyce, seconded by Cant. Any comments or discussion around the motion? Dana, would you call the roll, please?
Hagelstein,
Yes.
Barnett,
Yes.
Cant,
Yes.
Cupits,
Yes.
Boyce,
Yes.
Layla,
Yes.
Henson.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
We have to, next week.
Yeah, so this will go to the board next week.
Can I ask a question? From the motion, what is the planned residential development to the south.
That'd be is that
The 33 acres that's vacant.
Has that come before this board?
It's zoned residential.
But is there a plan?
Not that we've seen.
Residential for-
No,
Okay.
it's zoned residential.
Okay. Item 7D is the Walker rezoning. Dan, are we tabling that again?
He's approved it.
That,
The Van Dyke piece?
yeah, that'll be on the August agenda.
Okay.
And just so it isn't lost, that will be amended to be M1, no conditions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. You guys good to go, or you need a break? Good? Good? Let's try to power through this. I don't know if we can, but. Item 8, reviews. There are none. Item 9, communications. Any communications? Hearing none. That takes us to item 10, unfinished business. So master plan review. Planner's memo.
Right, so I do have a memo. This has been updated in one small area since the last discussion. That area is on page 3. And it's under the heading Local Areas of Concern at the top of that page. So we did go through the rest of the memo last time, but I wanted to highlight the area that I updated since our last discussion. So
What page was that, Joe?
page 3 at the top. More so than a specific corridor or area, the Planning Commission should consider whether the township has enough land planned for industrial uses. Industrial zoning once occupied much of the east side of M53, but was scaled back. The township should also review its commercial districts, as all land zoned for commercial use appropriately designated. Our C3 district has never been implemented on the zoning map, should it be. Analysis of commercial uses should also consider agribusiness and agritourism uses, which we currently have under study. And then my overall comment there also is, while the 2016 master plan is generally still pretty relevant to the direction of the township, changes in the southeast portion of the township along 33 Mile Road in McKay especially, may warrant a reexamination of that area. And an overall look at commercial and industrial land uses could also be undertaken. So all that discussion has to consider whether the Planning Commission should also discuss whether any issues other than commercial and industrial development should be discussed as part of an update. But those two items in particular seem to be coming to a boil at this point, and I think it is worth studying both of them.
I agree.
Is there, Joe, a benefit to discussing details further, or if everybody shares Jared's opinion that we need to move forward, we can just do that right now, correct?
Yes, I think you could have a motion to communicate to the board that you would like to undertake a master plan update to study the industrial and commercial uses in the township and the geographic scope of those uses and where they're permitted.
So a question is that something that can be shared verbally with the board at its meeting?
I think the planning commission should have a motion that can then be shared with the board.
Correct.
Yeah, so.
And then if we did that, then it could be followed up after that. It looks like my understanding from your memo is you would have some more work to do in terms of, based on what we might approve or recommend.
Right.
The costs associated with that, any other resources and the timeline.
Right.
So they don't both have to be presented to the board at the same time.
That's correct. So the board could agree at its meeting next week in principle that yes, we should pursue a master plan update. And then at its following meeting could consider a cost estimate and whether or not it was comfortable with the cost estimate
Of
presented.
course.
And if there need to be changes, they could even at the following meeting
Right.
agree to an amended agreement.
Is it reasonable for you to get your part of this done by, I guess that would be the August meeting?
Yeah, that would be perfectly reasonable.
That gives you enough time. Do we still have time to get this on the board agenda for next week?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think it's going to entail any paperwork other than to say what the motion is.
Yeah, at this point, yeah, you're communicating that the planning commission has a desire. Is the board interested in soliciting a scope and quote? And then if the board is interested in that, then we provide the scope and quote.
I anticipated that we were probably all on board with moving forward. Mike Tremblay talked to us quite a bit about this I think back since, was he at the March meeting? No, since April. I think he missed the March meeting, he was on vacation. So I have some verbiage for a motion if you want me to go ahead with that.
Any other discussion before there's a motion? Yeah, I was here the last time we reaffirmed it, and I guess in hindsight, I wish we would have probably studied that a little deeper, just because how things seem to have changed over the last year or so, but.
Well, and I think it's going to continue to change.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah,
Yep.
so we should be ready. Okay, so with that, I will make a motion that the Planning Commission has determined that a master plan updated is warranted, and that the scope of the update should include the following. 1, a review of present industrial uses and whether future planned industrial availability should be modified and how. 2, a review of present commercial uses and whether future planned commercial availability should be modified and how. And 3, that the commercial review should consider the applicability of the C3 zoning district and possible agritourism ventures. It's not part of my motion, but I would also say that it is part of my motion, that we would request the assistance of the township board in accomplishing this limited master plan review, and that the planner would provide a cost estimate and timeline and resource needs for the board's consideration.
All right, second. Yeah, Dana, did you?
No.
No.
No. Can you share that with me?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
You speak very quickly.
Sorry.
Thank you. All right, so motion by Boyce, seconded by Vincent. Dana, would you call the roll, please?
Barnett?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Hagelstein?
Yes.
Blaylock?
Yes.
Cupid?
Yes.
Vincent?
Yes.
Boyce?
Yes.
Motion carries. And as our representative to the board, I'm sure you will
I will be
take that forth and.
as long as I'm on the agenda.
All right, item 10B is continuation discussion around the chickens within the township.
Yes.
So we have been working through updated ordinance. Joe, do you want to run us through this?
Right, so we discussed kind of the policy element of it at the last meeting. And at this meeting, we're looking at actual draft language based on the policy discussion that we had at the last meeting. So this applies to chickens and other domestic fowl kept solely for the personal, non-commercial use of the occupants of the premises. And then it's allowed in the RS, R1, R1A, R1B, and R1C subject to standards. And those standards, I'll just kind of do a little tour of the standards. There's not a super long list. So we have a minimum 1 acre lot size, and the number of chickens permitted is limited based on the size of the property. So 40,000 square feet to 2 acres. It's 5 chickens, and then if you're at 2 to 3, you get 10, and then 3 plus, you get 20. Roosters are not permitted under these circumstances. Of course, if you were a commercial farm, that would be different. We're talking about the private keeping for non-commercial use. Chicken coops and associated enclosures have a setback of 25 feet from property lines, minimum of 125 feet from a neighboring residence. Coops and enclosures are supposed to be located in a rear yard. Coops and enclosures located closer than 30 feet to a property line have some associated screening requirements, so they have to be screened from a neighboring property with some vegetation or a privacy fence. Existing vegetation and fences may suffice to meet that requirement if they have the full screening effect. And then there's some standards that chicken coops have to meet, 4 square feet of indoor space per chicken, associated outdoor run, equipped with adequate perching and nesting facilities, and then housing has to ensure proper ventilation and protection from predators in extreme weather. And then we don't allow animal waste to build up on site, and then chickens may be permitted to free range in a rear yard provided that the yard is fully enclosed by a privacy fence a minimum of 6 feet in height. And that's it.
So if I can ask a question,
Mm-hmm.
did you say R1A?
Yes, yeah.
I thought it was one, I'm sorry, hold on 1 second. 1A, okay, R1B. Okay, but you must have 2 acres.
Must have 1 acre.
It's 1 acre. It's actually 40,000 feet based on the way that the table reads, and I believe the discussion last time led us to 40,000 feet rather than 43,560 square feet.
Right, so do we need to change that?
It would be a minimum of 40,000 square feet in the paragraph leading into the table.
All right, and this says 40,000 square feet, 2 acres.
Dash 2 acres, so it's
Dash
from
2.
40,000 to 2 acres.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which 1 acre is how many?
43,560 square feet.
Thanks for the correction.
Yeah, the number of square feet in an acre is drilled into you in planning school.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, I may just disagree with myself with my comment. So is this 2 acres is what you have to have a chicken or more?
It would be 40,000 square feet, so about 1 acre. And then if you have that up to 2 acres, then you're limited to 5 birds, and then you get to a different limit if you're over 2 acres.
I seem to recall like Tremblay saying 2 acres, period.
Yeah,
And yet you're saying 1 acre is acceptable.
that's where we landed as a board at the last meeting, was at the 1 acre. Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to have to go back and read it or look at it.
Joe, we also said that the homeowners association can further restrict.
That's correct. The homeowners association can have a provision in its bylaws that prohibits the keeping of chickens, among many other things. For instance, the homeowners association tonight that required the 80% brick on an accessory building.
So they can be more strict, but not less.
Exactly. They can be more strict, but not less. And we can't enforce their bylaws. Their bylaws are a civil matter for enforcement.
Does that need to be called out in here at all? Or is that just?
That's just how the law works.
Just how it works, okay.
Yeah.
I guess the one piece maybe I don't fully agree with is on C, 25-foot setback. We only require 10-foot setbacks on accessory buildings.
That's correct.
And so I guess I'm just not clear as to why this would be different. Assuming that we're talking about a chicken coop.
We already reduced it from 50.
That's correct, yeah. Well, originally we had.
If I can chime in this, I was in the audience when we talked about this before, and that's one thing that popped in my head. We've got a lot of properties in this township that abut other properties to the rear, or wetlands, or cul-de-sacs, either way where they're, I think the best spot to put these chickens would actually be the farthest point, closer to the lines. Obviously, you don't want to be closer to someone else's house, but we already have the 125. So why would we be more restrictive with that than we would be with buildings? I would try to give the homeowner as much flexibility on their own property as possible. So if the neighbors didn't have a problem, if we still had the variance, could we go 10? Could we go 5? Could we go? It's getting it further away from your own property. I would think in some areas, like I said, I know this township has a lot of parcels. I think the best spot would be almost right on the lot line.
At the back.
As long as neighbors didn't have a problem with that, I think it gives more freedoms to the resident.
Well, that's just the point, is that if, once it's hard-coded, the neighbors won't have a choice, right?
Well, they're not going to have a choice. However, whatever we agree on is going to be their choice.
Right, but if it's right up to the property line, then the neighbors won't have a choice if we allow that. In other words, somebody's not going to come in and say, well, are you okay with this? Because that's where I'm going to put my chicken coop.
But they could build a garage or a shed there.
Right. I guess that's the point that I'm.
10-foot setback, yeah.
Yeah, that's the point where I'm hung up on is like, what is the difference?
Give them more property to work with. Go give them more freedoms on their own property. If we're able to do that with a shed, why is a chicken coop different? That's not my question.
You have two backstops there. You have the 125-foot separation from neighboring residents, and then you have the screening requirement if it's less than 30 feet from a lot line.
I think we walk before we run. We already reduced it in last PC from 50 to 25. If we receive negative feedback from the community that they wanted to do something closer at that point in time, we could consider it. But, looking at the perspective of the person having the hens, yeah, it's potentially beneficial to them allowing the coops closer, but for a neighbor that's not pro-chicken, it just puts it closer to them.
Yeah, I guess two things. I don't know, I guess I would prefer not to do something with the intention that we will come back to it per se. I think the other thing is, what if someone said, well, I have an existing accessory building, I'm going to use it as a chicken coop. If it's 10 feet from the lot line, then I guess they can't. They have to go build something. There's just, this double standard doesn't make sense to me. Like, if it's 10 feet for an accessory building, I don't know why it's different for a chicken coop, which would be less impactful.
Well, we do dictate the appearance of an accessory building.
Sure.
Whereas we have nothing in here.
Well, not in the rear yard, not really.
Oh, right, not.
Yeah, if you put an accessory building in your rear yard, you're not really bound by much.
your concern was the other neighbors being too close to the neighbors. If right now it's 125, if we were to bump that to a 150, could we negate the 25? Wouldn't that share the same? So if you had the closest residential dwelling at 150, negate that 25.
Yeah, it's an interesting proposition in that it allows increased flexibility for the people having
It would-
the ends, but it also does not diminish the protection for the neighbors.
Right, but it might wipe out the ability to have an R1B and R1C. Let's think about that.
No.
Rather than looking at that, look at the 40,000 square feet. If we increased the 125, Joe, from a neighboring house to, what'd you say,
No,
150?
I wouldn't limit the 125. I would put a caveat in there. If you had a minimum of 150, then you'd be allowed to go to negate the 25.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see, I
So
see.
the residents are getting the same amount of feet or more.
I see.
But if that option is to use the farthest lot line, they have the best of both worlds. It gives freedom to the homeowner, yet it still abides by all the rules. That 125 minimum, 125 will always be the minimum, but if you have 150 or better, you could be 200-300 feet away from somebody's, yet you gotta have this 25 feet buffer. You're saying if you've got that much land, and you just give the people to use that buffer, give them the option.
So two conditions, 125 and 25, and then if you've got,
150 or greater,
150 or
25 can be eliminated.
well, it'd be 10, right?
Whatever you think's right. Just an idea.
Yeah, so 125 and 25 and 150 and 10?
I think it's one or the other, right?
150, the 150 and 10 gives you more of a buffer between the house than the 125.
I was thinking, there's some lot lines that may be 200, 300 feet away from somebody, and you're worried about this 25 foot. So actually, where the 25 foot is when you're in close quarters.
It
You
puts
got a
you in
big
the
sprawling area.
middle of the yard.
And it just it gives you more opportunity to use more of your yard.
I think it's a pretty good compromise.
It doesn't make anybody any closer to any chickens at all. It just gives the person with more property more able.
Can you write the ordinance like that, Joe?
So if you added to item C, the coop may be as close as 10 feet to the property line if it is a minimum of 150 feet from the nearest residence. That gives you both options. You can be 125 feet and 25 feet from the property line, or you can be 10 feet off the property line and 150 feet from your neighboring residence.
Why not just pick one standard? Why have both?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Why would we do both? Why wouldn't we just say the 10 feet and the 150 instead of having two standards?
Some places may not have the 150 available. If they didn't, then they couldn't have chickens.
Then you got to be further
If they have the
away.
one,
Well, they could still go to 25 feet.
correct, yeah, the way we
Right.
here, you basically have two options. If you have the 150 available to you, you've got more area to put your chicken. If you only have a small area to work, then you have to stay with the 25.
So if I may rudimentary draw out this
See what you got there.
squares of like, if we're talking about 200 by 200 lots, 40,000 square feet, if the house is in the middle, I think you're going to have a hard, I mean, you may have 100 feet. I guess it all depends on where the houses are relative to the land. I mean, you may have, if this was 100 feet to the back and the chicken coop is 10 feet off, you're never going to hit the 150 and you probably having a hard, you'd hit the 25 actually and have to put it 25 off the yard, so. I think just from,
Some people who are sitting on 5, 10 acres would have no.
they'll have no problem, but I think the smaller, like when we get down to the smaller size lots, it may become not feasible to have them. So I guess that's just what we have to ask ourselves is, there's a decent chance that at 40,000, they're not going to be allowed relative to whatever the structures or the makeup of the parcels is. And maybe even at either of the two scenarios we're talking about.
Well, at 40,000, they might have to put it up real close to the house if they want it, just to meet the.
Yeah, right.
So if you left it at, if you have both options, the 125 would give them the option, more of an option than the 150 of pushing it farther up in their yard, they'd be able to put it farther back.
Before you get too far along, what I would like to do is throw a monkey wrench into this, because what I remember sitting next to Mike Conley is he said 2 acres, which if I understand says that it's not 40,000. What is the right number?
I don't remember him saying.
I sat right next to him.
And even if
And
he
that's what I
did,
recall,
it's up
and
to
before-
us what we want to do.
And before I will vote on it, you can go ahead. Before I vote on it, I want to get that checked.
Why does it matter?
Why does it matter?
Yeah,
Because
we're the
that
ones
was
that
what
are-
was, if that was his motion, make it 2 acres.
There wasn't a motion. We haven't had a motion. We've just had discussion, so.
We didn't vote on this.
But
think we
he
agree.
was in the mode of suggesting what we would be discussing this meeting.
We can always table it to verify, give it the benefit of the doubt.
Well, it's a matter of what the people who are currently
Yeah.
serving on the board want. So regardless of what was said, my impression at the last meeting was that the board as a whole was leaning on that 40,000 square foot standard as a minimum for the keeping of chickens. And this is the composition of the board now, so I would say this is who decides.
All right.
Okay, so so where do we land on C then?
The way I've currently got it formulated is it has the 25 and 125 and then the 10 and 150. And based on the circumstances, one of those is going to apply.
And you think it's feasible that either could apply?
Yeah, I don't think it's hard to administer. I think if you've got the 150, then you can be 10 feet off the property line, and if you don't have it, then you got to be 25 feet off.
I had a thought on G. So if it says that the yard would be fully enclosed by a privacy fence to allow chickens to free range, which makes sense for a lot of these, but for RS, if you have 20 acres, based on that initial research I did, typical chickens like to stay within 100 to 200 feet of their coop. So is that something we want to impose on all sizes of land?
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're on 20 acres or something.
How many of those properties have a fence around them at all?
Probably not many, if any.
That's a really good question.
Is there,
This usually isn't a problem, because people who are free-ranging chickens on that big of an area don't have chickens very long.
Well, that's true, yeah, a coyote will come
You'll find that
through.
this is really, if you're gonna be farming chickens, you're gonna find out the hard way that doesn't work.
I think, Daryl, part of that problem, and speak up, Dana, that existing issues that the supervisor is having, which this won't address, but the chickens are free-ranging over in the neighbor's yard.
That's trespassing, that's
Yeah,
different.
yeah, so,
That's a whole different rule.
so I think this was an attempt to, at least going forward, corral some of that. And that, literally, I believe several of the instances that the supervisor has encountered have been in this area where the properties are close together.
right, so how do we craft that
Right.
without being too broad?
I mean, I think it's that yard is fully enclosed by a privacy fence, a minimum of 6 feet in height, or that the free-ranging area is some distance from a property line or something like that. I think that's really, it's an or thing. So if you've got a lot of property and these chickens are, 300 feet from the property line, okay, maybe we don't need a privacy fence at that point. I mean, I think he's correct that on a very large property, if you have no fence at all, chickens that are allowed to free range might disappear one by one. But
Could it be broken down by the different districts? Or does that,
so I think, yeah, in the R1A, R1B, R1C, yeah, you're not gonna have, I mean, maybe there's a couple properties in those districts that are very large, but for the most part, yeah, you're gonna need the fence on those lots. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe if you added a clause to the end of G that said, or the free range area shall be minimum of, you think 300 feet if the average range of a chicken is in the 200-foot range. If it's 300 feet, if the free range area is 300 feet from a property line, the chickens are very unlikely to wander where they're not supposed to be. Like an occasional wayward hen, but okay. I think if we do that, it provides for both circumstances, and it doesn't require, a huge amount of fencing on a very large property where it's not really needed.
So how would it read again, Joe? G, revised G?
Chickens may be permitted to free range in a rear yard, provided the yard is fully enclosed by a privacy fence, a minimum of 6 feet in height, or the free range area is a minimum of 300 feet from a property line.
okay. So we got a couple edits, I think. Joe will bring this back next month with a look to maybe do a vote. Okay.
That's fine, yeah.
All right, moving on, 10C, agribusiness and agritourism. Do you have any updates for us today?
A little bit.
Okay.
Regarding the list of possible activities that may or may not be protected by the GAMPS and the existing township ordinance, we did recently receive the input from our township attorney, and I've provided, I handed out at everybody's place an updated one-page list, and now the legal column is filled in. I did talk to Christine, our attorney, and she stressed that it's important for us to remember that the Right to Farm Act provides conditions under which a farm and its operations cannot be found to be a public nuisance under local zoning ordinances. She said, remember that the farm has to be commercial in nature and conform to all the applicable GAMPs in order to be protected by right to farm. Also, you'll start to see this when you read some of the entries that she made. In some cases, the applicability of the GAMPs are going to be premised on the type of farming that's being done. So they may apply and cover Farm A, but they may not apply and cover Farm B because they're doing different kinds of farming. Lastly, we need to keep in mind that the Right to Farm Act and its interpretation regularly change. I mean, there's court cases, the GAMPs are updated every year. I don't see that they're going to get a lot looser. They're already pretty broad in favor of what could be covered. Regarding the other handout, I wasn't anything other than a draft, kind of food for thought. If anybody has any big concerns or questions about the important points identified by the subcommittee, we're probably pretty close to being able to jump in if I'm speaking, way out in the distance, but I think we're pretty close to being able to take a crack at an ordinance. And I do believe that it is going to be something that it's going to be a lot of discussion. Because once you see it and you actually have a chance to read it and understand what each section means and why it may be changed from what it was, that's going to take a lot of discussion because, it could be massaged any number of different ways. So that's kind of where it's at. The last comment I would have, Rick and I are kind of the only remaining members on our subcommittee since Mike resigned. And again, I'm guessing that this work is going to take quite a bit more time, especially if there's any thought of incorporating it into a master plan. Nothing's really sticking out for me, but really can't rule it out. So it'll be some time, and I'm looking for another person to help with the committee. It would, I think, mainly be reviewing documents. I think between you and I, we can probably take a pretty good crack at crafting something.
Yeah.
It's just that it needs eyes on it before we bring it back here, so we're not wasting a lot of time.
Is anybody interested in filling in Mike's spot on the subcommittee for agritourism?
I can do it.
Mandy?
Thanks, Mandy. All right.
So I don't know if anybody has any other questions on that. Armada Township has approved some more of late.
Okay.
They have Blake's, which is a kind of an entity unto its own. They're in a special overlay district.
Yes, there is an overlay district that was
Yes, and
kind
they-
of designed for them, essentially.
Yeah, and they just approved SLUs for, a lot of outdoor activity that's not necessarily connected to the farming for a place called Miller Farms. It's a pretty nice farm down there on Romeo Plank. And then they also approved a event venue at the Trillium Farm in their barn. That was also a special land use, so not sure about anything else.
You got an inquiry you initiated regarding Armada's taxation.
Yeah, I sent you guys an email today, maybe if you can find out. I'm kind of guessing the tax basis would change in that special overlay. I'm not sure about the special land use.
Yeah, we'll have to talk to them. I forwarded that to Mike Philbrook. I think he knows, has a contact over there, so maybe you can initiate that, someone can get that information to us.
Yeah, Dana and I have gone back and forth on it a few times, so.
Okay.
It'd be helpful to know, because that's another factor that.
Sure.
Is everybody aware that typically agritourism is taxed at homestead exemption rates? They avoid the 18 mil school. I mean, it's a sweetheart deal. Conducting a commercial operation in a residential district with homestead exemption tax rates.
Interesting.
So,
However, the offset is the farms are being preserved.
you know, hopefully their operations are neighbor friendly.
Great stuff. Appreciate the work you guys are doing to pull this together.
Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you, Mandy, for volunteering to get involved. Okay, that takes us to 10D, 5G.
I have no updates tonight.
Okay. All right, that takes us to item 11, which is new business, election of officers. All right, so it's that time we need to re-elect officers for chairman, vice chairman, and secretary. Is there an order in which we do this by? Chairman. All right, anybody want to be chairman?
You?
I nominate
Continue,
Jared.
I second
Make a
that
motion
nomination.
that Jared continue as our chairperson.
Okay. I'm willing to keep on in this role, so I appreciate your confidence in me. So I have a motion by Boyce, seconded by Kupitz. All in favor, say, is this all in favor? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
I think you only really have to do a roll call if there's a mixed vote, then you want to know who voted which way.
Next up is vice chairman. And so I appreciated your support, Ed. I'd like to nominate you to stay on as vice chair.
Second.
Motion by Vincent, seconded by Hagelstein to continue to have Ed Kupitz as vice chairman. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right, and then that takes us to secretary.
I nominate Anne Marie.
I'll do it. That's fine.
Motion by Barnett, seconded by Camp, to keep Anne Marie as our secretary, in addition to her growing roles now as the Board of Trustee member and representative to
Just a very short.
Planning
number of
Commission.
months. 5 months.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries.
Can I ask a question about the officers? Is this something that the Board of Trustees needs to approve, or is it just informational to them?
It's just informational to them.
Thanks. I'll do that.
Thank you. So that takes care of 11A. And then 11B is we need to make a recommendation to the board for a planning commission member to sit in on the ZBA. So this was also a role that Mike Tremblay filled, and with his absence, we need to fill that. I don't have a ton of information on this. Joe, is there anything, or Dana, that we need to know before someone volunteers for this?
The meeting is typically the fourth Monday of the month, so
6 p.m.
if you have a standing tennis practice on the fourth Monday of the month or something, maybe don't throw your hat in the ring. But yeah, and it's same time, same meeting
Yeah,
time?
it's, I think last year we had quite a few meetings, but generally it's, I would say average of maybe 5 per year. So not nearly what the planning commission does generally. I would say probably less.
So Dana, the PC member on the ZBA, it's a standing seat. They go to every meeting.
Right.
Okay, unless, of course, they have an excuse.
Yeah, and there are 2 alternates, so it's, we've got a little backup on the.
Yeah, if you have to be absent, an alternate should be able to stand in. And if a case is tabled at the ZBA and an alternate heard the case the first time, they carry over and will continue to hear the case if it covers multiple meetings.
I have another question. Does this appointment need to be temporary? In the event, whatever trustee, permanently goes the seat that I'm sitting in for 5 months, and they want to do it, or do we just make a appointment?
You can make an appointment. If it is the trustee and the trustee changes, then obviously you would be then making another appointment.
If they wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I believe Mike told us that they don't the trustee doesn't have to do
Oh,
both?
it does not have to be the trustee.
Okay.
No, it could be any member of the planning commission. Yeah.
Okay, anybody excited about this?
Oh, it's a good group, come on.
I was on the ZBA in Rochester. This was decades ago, but it was about a year and a half, a year maybe. And it is very interesting. It's different than the planning commission because your decision standards are different. It's much more constrained.
Right. Generally, the meetings are about a third of the time as the planning commission meetings. So short, to the point.
Okay, since nobody's volunteering, how about we do a coin toss?
You got a 7-sided coin?
How about we do this? I'm willing to do it. However, I think after having done the roles that I have, we have some new members who are very bright, intelligent, participative. They don't always agree with what I think, but they're great. I probably will not be on the planning commission as the vice chairman next year, perhaps not even on. I'm 75 years old, I'm in good shape, but I can't put this group at jeopardy of having people not wanting to throw your hat in the ring or jump in there and get smacked in the face a couple of times. Obviously joking. But I brought Mandy on board, actually this side of the table whenever I became chairman. We've added another. And I would encourage people to do it. I will do it temporarily. So if you want me to do it, I will do it. It's only a few meetings, but I will not be on the board, this commission probably next year. It's up to you. Somebody else want to step forward?
And if you don't, I will. I mean, one of us has to, so. Afraid you're going to say that. Wife will be thrilled, I'm sure. Well, I think we have to make a nomination.
I nominate Jared Vinson for that position.
Second.
Nomination from, or motion from Kupitz, seconded by Boyce, to nominate Jared Vincent to the, as the representative of the Planning Commission to the ZBA. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. And motion.
Hi, Carol.
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
should he not be able to attend? What's the protocol?
Should he not be able to attend, I would ask one of the two alternates if they were available. Now, that's what we have, the PC doesn't have. That's what the ZBA has, that.
All right. That takes us to 12, comments from committees and consultants. We heard from the Agritourism Committee. So I think anything else from a committee? I don't think we have any other committees. Consultants,
Nothing further.
comments from commissioners, 13.
Did you formally introduce Daryl?
I did not. This is Daryl Blaylock joining us right now on a temporary
Jumped
basis.
right in.
But yeah, great job
Like that.
tonight.
Good job.
We do my part.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
I've got a comment.
Yeah.
Try to be brief. Always a challenge, though, you know that. But this should be a short one. Ran into a situation on the Harler special land use. We were looking at the tax record you first pull up BSA, it shows 1,344 square feet. But you look at the sketches, you open those, and it showed 1,320 square feet. Talked with Philbrook, got with Mitch in assessing, and the BSA software will allow for the principal structure to multiply less than whole numbers. But for accessory structures, it will not. So the rounding up resulted in the difference between 1,320 and 1,344. So what we should be doing is not relying on the home page. We should always be pulling up the sketches. Because, yeah, what's her name, that goes out and does a visual?
Kristen Rolfs.
Yeah, Kristen does the actual physical measuring, and that will be on the sketches. So, that's it.
Thank you for that.
Good to know.
I frequently look at that, and that's good to know.
I have one update.
Yeah.
At the board meeting in January, they did unanimously approve the 2 zoning amendments that we recommended. The first one was the site plan, change to the site plan validity period. And the second one was all the changes that we made to the industrial districts and how that surfaced in other parts of the ordinance. So, and along that line, I have a question. I don't know if it's Dana or Joe, but when we do a change like this, especially with the industrial ones, because it touches a lot, when should we be looking to see the actual change in the ordinance online and the map update?
So that will be sometime in the next couple of weeks. It's now effective, so I've got somebody working on it.
Okay.
I just don't have it done.
So, forthcoming.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments from commissioners? If not, I move to adjourn at 8:53 PM. Seconded by Kent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.